Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. I have a slightly different setup today. I have like a window here, I'm like sitting, it's a little bit different than usual. But welcome regardless. I hope everyone's able to join. My name's Leandra and this is Coding Club. Last week, this is like the first time we're doing a two-part Coding Club in Tuesday Club, which is kind of exciting. We're doing a longer project, so it helps us get into some of the like different concepts that are kind of harder to get into on Tuesday Club. Things like loops, things like conditionals, and hopefully we can keep kind of building off of what we're learning here in future clubs and keep doing some like harder projects, which I think would be really cool. Um, for those of you who weren't here last week, it's absolutely no problem. But there is a link in the description, and I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat as well. So you guys can remix a project and start right where we left off last week. So I'm just going to hop over to my portfolio here. How's everyone doing, by the way? How are you? I'm doing great today. It's very hot out. I'm going to go here to the project we made last week. So this is what we did last week. These 2 days we're making a news broadcast with code. So it essentially has all of the features that you would expect a news broadcast to have. There's like scrolling taglines, there's a graphic, there's a newscaster, there's going to be like a logo that switches in and out, all of that, all the things. So here's the link. Just as for anyone who wasn't here last week. For anyone who was here last week, just go to your own portfolios. You can just sign in at vidcode.com and click right up here. And that'll bring you to the project you made last week, and you can just edit yours. You see how this says edit for me? For any of you, it'll say remix. Let me make sure that people were able to join, just because people were having trouble. And if I'm like looking up to the left or to the right, it's because I set up like two screens here. Okay, cool. It looks like everybody is able to join, or no one's emailing me and complaining, which is usually a good sign. So go ahead and either edit your project or remix mine, and we can go ahead and sort of keep working our way through this project. So last time we left off, let's just go ahead and jump to where we were last time. I think we have headline, feature not yet implemented. Did we get to box behind headline? Yeah, we have that. So I think we were at station logo. Okay. Great. A few more people just joined. Quick recap. We are doing a Code the News project. So we're coding a newscast. This is what I have so far. Go ahead and remix the project in the chat to just jump straight here. Or if you don't want to, if you're like, I don't want to do that, that's totally fine. I feel like part of my screen is like cut off here, actually. Let me fix that. There we go. Okay, sweet. Sorry about that, guys. Cool. So if you don't want to start with a bunch of code you don't know, that's totally fine too. Feel free to just hop to the link. I'll post that in the chat as well. It's just vidcode.com/project/HOC news. And you can sort of follow along, and instead of having everything I have, you'll like only have a logo and like only have a scrolling headline, which I think is like also totally fine. Because like I said, it's kind of new for us to be starting Tuesday coding class with a bunch of code already written. Cool. Well then with that, let's go ahead and start building our logo. I actually love the idea of programming logos. My background is sort of a combination of design and programming. And so anytime where you kind of get to use programming to make something, it's usually like made by hand for like so hard for people to do, and take so many iterations, and to kind of make something that can be generative, or done in code, I always find to be really fun. So let's go ahead and start. Hi, Juhi. Let's go ahead and start. So we'll make our logo by first dragging in the circle here. Because there's so much code here already, I'm actually going to go ahead and add a comment, even though we added a comment at the end, like after we built a feature last time. There's just so much going on here. I kind of want a comment first so nothing gets lost. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let me move this up. Logo, I'm just going to say logo. I know what that means. This is where my logo is. Cool. So you see I dragged in the circle code. If you're following along, go ahead and do the same. And a whole line of code shows up. I have var, my circle, which is just the name of my variable. I can call it anything. I'll probably end up changing the name. And then what's getting stored inside that variable is the circle object. And this open parenthesis and close parenthesis, and 3 different numbers getting passed in here. So if I click on circle, I can see that what's getting passed in is the X position, where my circle is left and right, the Y position, where my circle is up and down, and then the radius. Because it's a circle, not an oval or an ellipse, I only have one number. I can't make it like taller than it is wide or anything like that. It can only be the same. It's a circle. So let's go ahead, and I kind of want it like right here, on my project, just like in the top left corner, a little news logo, just like it was in this picture here, of this very handsome newscaster in the corner. I don't know why I have that picture. I love it so much, just like the puppet newscaster. So then if I'm trying to make mine similar, I'll just move it over like 100. I do want it smaller. It's a bit hard for me to like tell where it's going to go. I'll make it 40. There we go. So now this will be moved to like more of a left. And if you're following along, which I encourage you to do, as always, this will be recorded. So it's up to you if you want to watch it now and follow along, or if you want to just watch and go through the tutorial on your own later. Or if you want to watch the recording and do it a second time, all options are possible and valid. So I think instead of my circle, I want to give this a better variable name, because I'm going to start editing it. So I'll probably call it, is there a prompt? Okay, so something like logo circle. I'm going to call it like logo, like body, like the body of my logo, like the kind of the container. Where everything's going to go inside. And then these instructions have their own ideas for how we might, oh sorry, I'm trying to move my face out of the way. There we go. No, I'm not blocking anything. These instructions sort of have their own idea about how we might want to make this logo. But I think I'm actually just going to do it with emojis. That's like more fun to me than anything I'm going to make with shapes here. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and drag in text so that it already has some text written for me. And then instead of hello, I'm going to choose an emoji. So for me, I go up to edit emojis and symbols. If you're not on a Mac, it might be a little bit different. Sometimes people go to iEmoji or copy and paste emoji in Google to find emojis to put into their project. And then I feel like an eye is like a good logo. It looks like my like emoji selector isn't popping up on the screen. But I have all the regular options. I have this like skull, I have this alien. I kind of like the eyeball. I'm kind of like feeling the eyeball as like my news logo. I know it's like a little weird, but I kind of like it. So I'm going to go ahead and call this logo car, like logo character. And then I'm going to start editing these. So the easiest way to know what I can do with my code is to look at my previous code. So let's go ahead and scroll up here to our headline background. And it kind of gives me a clue as to all the ways that I may be able to edit my logo circle. Things like changing the color, the border color, the width, and the opacity. So if I want, honestly, I can go ahead and just copy these just so I have them and have all the properties and just bring them all the way down here and just paste them in, and then go ahead and change, like obviously nothing's changed yet because I'm still using this variable for the headline background. So instead I'm going to say logo body, logo body, logo body. Okay, cool. So this looks like fine. It kind of matches this down here. It doesn't really look like a logo to me, partially because my text isn't in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pass in a different X and Y position here to start to get that in the right spot. You guys are so quiet in the chat today. Are you all coding? So this first one is just my X and Y. You can see the X, if I add like 127, it'll go way over. 27 is sort of like right in the middle. 20 is the Y. If I put this at 120, you'll see a drop. But I don't want it to. I kind of want it right there. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this opacity a bit higher. Change the inside color to be like a blue. And then the border color, I don't know, maybe I'll make it like a purple. That's kind of nice. I'm gonna make the border width. Does that work? Oh yeah, it does. There we go. It's like fine. It's like looking okay. And then let me go ahead and actually add one more sort of like emoji character. Let's see. You can't see it, but I have my like emoji list open. Yeah, I'll do the sparkles. I feel like I use the emoji sparkles maybe too much, but I do like them. So I think we're gonna go with them for the logo. So let's go ahead and set this to something like 20, 15. There we go, and then move this over. 35, 40, 50, 60, and then move it up a little bit. So change the Y position. And then I want to like offset that a little bit, so move my eye down. So go ahead and make your own logo. It doesn't have to look anything like mine, but if you do want the code, just because I know we're all starting off in different places, I'll just post it in the chat. Just so everyone has it. Oh no, it doesn't fit. All right, I'll do it without the second character. There we go. Cool. I'm liking my logo. I'm gonna delete this so it's all sort of in one block. And I'm actually gonna change these. Logo I, and then logo sparkles. It wasn't breaking anything, but I really don't want two of my variables to have the same name. It might break something in the future. Yeah, so like I said, work on your own logo. It doesn't have to look anything like mine. I'm actually gonna make my sparkle a little bit smaller. there we go. That's looking nice. Yeah, but make it like reflect your like whatever kind of newscast you're creating, and it can even reflect your tagline. So here, like my headline, not tagline. And my headline is 800 plus awesome coders have coded with the Vidcode Coding Club since March 2020. True, and something that I think is really awesome. So I could make this not an I, but instead like there's that like technologist. Yeah, so it could sort of be a logo that if I wanted to, I could have it sort of like reflect my headline, which I think I'm going to do because I really like that. So let's go ahead and move her up a little bit. Sorry I'm spending so much time on the logo. I did say that I have a design background. Logo bar, logo bar. Okay, there we go. And as always, feel free to post any bugs you're having in the chat or any questions, and I'll get to those as well. Okay, cool. So now that we kind of have our logo in a good place, the next step is to actually make our headline scroll. It's a feature that we're adding to our software, to our project, and we're going to use a couple different things to do that. We're going to be using loops, and we're going to be using conditionals. Loops help us actually animate our headline. So all of our code that we've written so far is only getting run once. We talked about this last week, how our code is run in order. So to move this rectangle behind my text, I had to I had to copy and paste it and move it before my text. And that's because if it was after, let me show you. Yeah, so here's my headline background. If it was after, it would cover my text. And that's just because my code is run in order. The same way you would read like a book or a report or a newspaper. So just like you usually read a book, it reads it once. So it finishes one page, this would be the page, and then it doesn't go back to it. It's like, I read it, it was fine. Here's the output over here in the canvas. I'm going to go do something else. And I need to write some code that's like, no, don't leave, don't do something else. Read this same line over and over and over and over and over again. And that's how I do things like animations. So the trick for that is going to be this thing called a repeat loop. So those of you who are familiar with Scratch, you're sort of familiar with this concept already. But on Vidcode, it's called a repeat loop, and you can get it. I'm on step 7.2 out of 10, so if you want this block, just jump to here with me. And I'm going to go ahead and drag this into my code. And there it is. So we're not used to blocks giving us this much code. We're usually used to blocks giving us one line of code and something happens. So this one's a bit different, right? It gives us a lot of code, and like nothing really seems to have changed. So just to break it down really quick, we have this repeat function here. And this is just what's telling my code, don't just read this once, read it again and again and again and again. This 5 here is telling it how often to repeat. So this 5 means frames. So right now, anything I write in here is going to repeat every 5 frames. So let's go ahead. This comment doesn't really do anything. Let's go ahead and change it to actually be like reflective of the code that we're writing. So inside this loop, I'm going to be animating my headline. So here I can write animate headline. And now when I skim through this, when I read through this later, if I give it to someone else to read, you guys all remixed this project today, it'll be really easy for everyone to sort of see what part of the code different things are happening. In this case, where my animation feature is built in. So you're all really quiet in the chat today, but what property would I change to animate my headline left? So we can see my headline here is really, really long. 800 plus awesome coders have coded with the Vidcode coding club since March 2020. True, you're all amazing. But that's all the way over here. And I want to get it, I want to move it to the left, and I want it to scroll. So what property, and remember properties are things like .x, .y, .color, .size, and we use this dot notation to edit our objects with these different properties. So what property would I use to change the position of my headline and move it to the left? Can you guys tell me in the chat? I guess if one person tell me in the chat. Or all of you. Either way. I'm open to any answers. Any and all answers. Oh, come on. I know you guys know the answer. All right. Okay, fine. So I would want to change the X property. So if I go ahead and do it manually, I have my headline up here. Headline.x is 190. If I make this 0, you can see that it moves over. So I just want to do that like manually. Or not manually, I want to do it in my code. But it's essentially the same concept. I'm just changing the X position of my text. So I can do that in a few different ways. I can't just write headline.x equals 0. I mean, I can do whatever I want in the code editor. I could just write human text, but it's not going to work. So this does something. There's like 1 second where it's like over on the left, and then it like jumps all the way to 0. And that's because I am setting headline.x to just be 0. But I don't want to do that. I want to be able to somehow store the new value and constantly have it animate based on that new value. So instead of just setting it to x, where it's going to just jump, I'm going to go and instead set it to itself. So what's going to happen now? Nothing. It's just going to stay like this. And then I'm going to say -20. And there we go. Something's happening. It's like going a little bit too fast to read, but I have animation. I have movement, which is something I don't think we've had in Tuesday Coding Club before. So it's pretty cool. So there's a few different ways for me to write this. One is the way I have it here. The other is, and it's just shorthand, but it's headline.x minus equals 20. And this is the same thing. It's just like a shorter way to write it. And then the third way I can write it, because programmers like to have a lot of different ways to do things, I can just write headline.x minus minus. And that's the same as writing headline.x equals headline.x minus 1, or it's the same as writing headline.x minus equals 1. So 3 ways to do 100% the exact same thing. Not 100% the exact same thing, because this one's only doing it by 1, but pretty similar, essentially to create the same feature. Cool. So how I mentioned that this number 5 is controlling the frames, like controlling how often the loop repeats. So if I made it 50, gonna go like a lot slower, like you can hardly see it move. It's like inching along. If I make it 1, it's gonna go a lot faster. So it gives you this idea of how headline or how my repeat function is repeating and how often it's repeating. Cool. So there's a few other features that we're going to add here. If you want to see like what the features are, you can always like jump up here and scroll down, and you'll see there's things like having the logo fade in, switching graphics in and out, and that's it. Those are the rest of the features. I think we should be able to do it in the time we have left. And if not, we're still going to do a new project next week. We're not going to do this one again. And if there's anything you guys are curious about how to make, tell me in the chat. We can change this and like what we create in the project sort of based on what you guys are interested in. So the very first thing I have to do here is to, if my logo is going to fade in, first I have to make my logo transparent. So I have to go ahead and take all of these different variable names, logo body, logo car, logo sparkles, and set them all to an opacity of 0. So just hide them. And I do that with the name of my variable, dot opacity, and just set it to 0. And let me know if I'm going too fast for you guys. Okay, cool. So if I was going to change that over time, it doesn't have to be perfect syntax, but what sort of code do you think I would put in my repeat loop to like have my logo sort of fade in? Aw. It would be the opacity property. So we have a couple options here. We can put this in another repeat loop, or we could use this one. I'm actually going to go ahead and drag in another one. We don't have to, like we could put them all in one loop, but maybe we want a different sort of frame rate for the different features, and it helps us sort of organize them too. So I'm going to change this comment here to logo fade in. And now using this code as a guide, how we sort of had it fade in by setting the property to itself plus something, or in this case minus something. We want to do the same thing, except instead of minus something when we're moving it to the left, we want to add something to it. We can't use plus plus because that'll bring it up by 1. And remember, opacity only goes from 0 to 1. So if it was like plus plus, it would just be like over in a second. It wouldn't fade in at all. Does that make sense? So for example, let's go ahead and just change the opacity of like logo body. So if I was going to do logo body dot opacity, if I was going to do plus plus, it just appears, and that's because I'm saying the same thing as equals logo body dot opacity plus 1 opacity. But I don't want to do plus 1 because opacity only goes from 0 to 1. So I need to start working in like decimals instead. So here I can say plus 0.1. And there we go. Now I'm starting to get this like nice fade in. It's going a little bit fast for me. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change. There's like a few things I could change here, but I don't want this number to be any smaller. So I'm going to change the frame rate instead. I'm going to make this 10. And there we go. Now it's moving it's like taking twice as long to fade in. The other things I have to add here, logo car dot opacity equals logo car dot opacity plus 0.1. I'm just going to do the same thing. And then I have to bring in logo sparkles as well. You can see that on line 41 here. So let's go ahead and do logo sparkles dot opacity equals, I have to spell opacity correctly. And then same thing, plus 0.1. And now it should all fade in. There we go. And if I wanted, for example, the emojis to take a little bit longer than the circle to fade in, maybe I like that effect a little bit, I can just make this number a bit smaller. So here I'm going to make this 0.075 instead of 0.1. And now we're going to get the circle to fade in first, and then that'll finish fading in. So I like that effect. I think that looks cool. So if you're following along, go ahead and do the same thing. Just bring in a repeat loop and go ahead and change the opacity of your different elements to create that sort of fade in effect. I'm not sure if it's gonna, so I wanna pause for a second because I don't think this tutorial goes over this. Because before this project is over, I wanna make sure that my repeat loop actually loops. So I'm gonna introduce something, and this is gonna come in a second with the feature switch, but just called a conditional. So conditionals are logic in our code that says if something is true, then do a thing. So if you're going to the grocery store and you have to make a left, so if you're at a certain intersection, go left. It's an example of a conditional. At its core, it's looking for if something is true or false. And the syntax for that, so what I'm doing right now is adding code that checks if my headline is off the screen. I want it to go back to the beginning. So the syntax for a conditional is if, and then an open parenthesis and a closed parenthesis, and then an open curly brace and a closed curly brace. So it looks like everything I just added here. I know my code's getting kind of long, but it's everything that's on line 49 and 50. I'm getting an error because it's it wants an identifier. It wants a thing that it's looking to be true. So I'm going to say if headline.x is going down and down and down and down, if it's less than, let's say, 400, I'm going to put it back to where it is at the start, which if I look up here, it looks like it starts at 190. It's always less than 400. I meant negative 400, because as it goes off the screen, it's going to start to be negative. So let's watch and just sort of see if I got my number right. Okay, it needs to be a little bit smaller, so this negative 800. I'm going to make this number bigger. There we go. Okay, so too fast, but it needs to be even bigger, so I'm going to make this 1,000. Okay, there we go. Now you can see the whole message. Great. So now I'm going to set this back to 1. And now I have this awesome scrolling headline that whenever it gets to the end, which in this case is a Y position of negative 1300, it just goes back to the beginning. And that's this code. So here is that for anyone who's following along in the chat. Sorry that YouTube doesn't format my text. I don't know, it's annoying. Sorry. Now I just posted the same line of code 3 times. Okay, cool. So now that we have that, we're going to use the same thing to switch our graphics around. So essentially, we're going to say, like after a certain amount of time, I want my graphic to switch to another graphic, something that you see all the time in newscasts. So same thing, I'm going to use a conditional. This gives me the option to drag in if code instead. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag this in. When you drag in these code blocks with like more complicated lines of code, you have to make sure that your cursor is in the right place. So this if statement, it has to be in my repeat loop, because otherwise my computer isn't going to know when something's true. Does that make sense? So how I said before, where it like reads your code once, the same way you read like a page of a book and then like walk away, you're like, great, I read it. Here it is. Here's the output. We can't do that with a conditional because it'll like check if something's true once. Like let's say you have something that like will come true when you're 13. So it's like if I turn 13, I get a pet horse. So I was gonna say car, but I guess like, yeah, okay, so when I turn 13, I will get a car. When I turn 16, sorry, back. When I turn 16, I will get a car. If I'm 16, I will get a car. If that is true, then this. And so the computer will check if you're 16, and you're not right now, and then it'll walk away and never, ever, ever check again because it read that page and now it's over. But if we have it in a repeat, it'll check again and again and again and again and again until it's true. So that's just why we need conditionals inside repeat loops. So go ahead and drag this in. Make sure that you go ahead and actually tab this in. And that's just so all of our code is in the same line. You can kind of see how our code's like already getting a little bit confusing. Now that we have like so many lines of code, like we have like all these different features, we have 65 lines. And as we add logic, it becomes more and more important to indent things in so that you're able to like see where things are lining up or not lining up when you're debugging and when you're adding new code. So for this particular feature, which is going to be switching this graphic in and out, we're going to want to check to see if our movie.currentTime is greater than or equal to a certain time. So it's really easy to check our movie.currentTime. I can just hover over right here. It's just like a hidden feature. And it tells me the movie.currentTime at different points in my project. So I'm going to say I want the graphic to switch around halfway. So like it's 7.5. So here I'm going to go ahead and switch this to, instead of if true, because if true is always going to be true, I'm going to say if movie.currentTime is greater than 6. 6 is like about halfway. And it's like after my logo's like faded in and all of that. Be careful with movie.currentTime. It's one of those things where if the capitalization isn't right, it's not going to work. And so it's current, and then separate word starting with uppercase T, time. And that's checking the current time of your movie. So now I want to go ahead and switch the source of my graphic. Source is a property like anything else. So let's go ahead into graphics and see what we're working with here. These are all things that I've uploaded. You can upload your own media if you want, or you can use what's there. And for this, for the source, you're going to want to look at the text under the different pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and upload it to the Vidcode logo. I can see right now it's fireworks. So I'm going to say, and it looks like it's called, oh, it's called fireworks. That's funny. So it's not a great variable name anymore. But I'm not going to change it right now because we're almost out of time. So here I'm going to say if movie.currentTime is greater than 6, I'm going to say fireworks dot source, just like another property like anything else, and then equals, in quotation marks, vidcode. Let's see if that works. So once this gets to 6, cool, it works. I can also, if I want, go ahead and change some of the other properties so that it's centered a little bit more. I'm actually going to change this to party instead. Okay, cool. Well, I think this project is awesome. Oh, this is going to have our graphics switch again. Yeah, we have 4 minutes left. We can do that. So we don't have to only put in one condition. We can stack these conditions, and we can do that with an if, else. So it's saying if this is true, do this, and then if that's not true, it'll switch to the next thing. I'll switch to the else. So here at the end of if, I could write else, and then once again in parentheses, and I'll set this to 4 instead. And now I'll say if movie.current time is greater than 6. And then you make 2 curly braces. What did I do wrong? Oh, else if. And then same thing, fireworks.source. And then this time I'm going to set it to vidcode. So let's see if it works. There's our party. Oh, it's not working. Okay, and I think I know why too. So it's never getting to the 6. It's getting to, is it greater than 4? It is, great, and then never getting to the else. So I actually have to switch these and set if this one is greater than 6, and if this one is greater than 4, and then switch the sources. So now this should switch to party after 4 seconds. There you go. And then after 6, it switches to vidcode. Okay, awesome. I'm going to go ahead and really quick move this over a little bit. Right now it's at a y of 15 and an x of 300. It's not centered. So set this to like 350. Oh. And move it down a little bit. Like 30 instead. Let's see what that looks like. Too much. Okay, cool. It looks good. I'm going to go ahead and publish it. If you're following along, publish yours just by submitting it, and I can pull it up and show it as an example. But I think this is great. This is like the biggest project that we've ever done with Tuesday Coding Club. So thank you guys for coming along with this adventure. We'll start a new project next week. I'm going to go ahead and submit this. I'm going to change the title. It's not Coding Club Newscast Day number 2 anymore. It's Coding Club Newscast Day number 1. Does anyone have any questions about this project that we went through today or any of the different concepts that we covered? If everything doesn't show up right away, just go ahead and press refresh here. Let me see if anyone submitted anything. It looks like Juhi has one. We have Wayne. Let's see. I'm just pulling up like an example project. Okay, here we go. This one's awesome. So we have one by Vidcode Learner. And this is beautiful, and it's actually like quite complicated. So we have our like scrolling news logo in the top right corner. We have things like jumping in and fading out. We have like all of these different boxes here, which I think look awesome. We have like this logo in the corner switching like 5 times. Um, this is such a great project. Thank you so much, Vidcode Learner. We have a new star or group of stars has been discovered. So thank you so much for your time. Like I said, next week we'll start a new project again. If there's anything that you guys are curious about making, let me know. And I hope this new format's working for everyone. And I'll see you all next